Arseholics podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've got Myers, your host. I'm here with Raj and Chooks. How are we doing, boys?
Very well,
Good,
mate.
good, mate. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Yeah, well, obviously, you and I were together yesterday, Raj, with Aaron and another one of our friends as well. Chooks, sadly couldn't catch you yesterday, but you were at the game.
Why didn't you meet us? Why didn't you meet us
yeah, it's
before or
good.
afterwards?
Oh, it was. I mean, these Sunday games, I love it, but Sunday afternoon, once you've got to do stuff with the family and the babies, and then if you've not arranged and certainly told the baby early enough that you've got a predisposed appointment, like you're in real trouble if you think you just escape. It's just not going to happen.
You're talking to people. We've both got more kids than you have, mate.
So I'm a novice. I'm a novice, mate.
Give you some tips, mate. We'll give you some tips. Oh dear. Next game, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure, the next game.
Yeah.
Well, it's about like we found a decent place for a drink though. I think we've been a couple of times randomly in the past, but it's not that far away from the stadium. It's like on Holloway Road, kind of near where Nando's and stuff is. It's like a small bar, and yeah, I mean, like there's hardly anyone that was in. I don't know if it was because it was a Sunday evening, but there's hardly anyone in there.
It's weird how quiet it was considering how packed everywhere else is in the area.
Yeah,
like
true.
Those are the best ones. Remember that one that we found once that was upstairs, and again that was just randomly for what was quite a big game, and the whole area was packed. I was able to get us like a table there. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We were able to get a beer quite easily. So
is that the barn? Is that what that place is called?
I think so.
Highbury Barn, is it, or the barn?
I think it might have been Highbury Barn. Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, 24 hours, more than 24 hours after Arsenal have drawn 1-1 at home to Man City, where Pep came and essentially parked the bus, really. Look, we're obviously going to get into the game and we're going to talk about all of the key incidents and performances and all of that. But look, we always like to just maybe give an insight into a match day, given that we were all there, and sort of feelings and thoughts and I guess just how confident we were going into the game pre-match. So obviously, Raj, you and I were together, and we had a couple of drinks beforehand, and you actually predicted the score and probably the kind of, well, obviously the outcome, but not just the outcome. I guess the way the game went, where you said, and we've got it on camera as well because I recorded you saying it in the pub. You thought that both managers would. I can't remember your exact words, but it was along the lines of both managers would be fairly happy with a draw.
It was basically all it was a similar rationale as to, I think, in the last pod when we gave our predictions, and all it was I think at this point in the season, I thought both managers would think a loss would really hurt them a lot more than a draw would. So I saw the game in my mind how I saw the game 2 seasons ago where we won 1-0 with Martinelli scoring right at the end of that game, if you remember, where it was just this like tight game. And it was just won in the end by kind of a deflected goal, but it was just tight. And that's how I saw this game playing out personally. It didn't end up playing out exactly how I thought it would.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't see City sort of parking the bus in that way. I don't think anyone has because they've never done it before. But yeah, but as I said before, I was really hoping I'd be wrong. I hope that all the pundits seem to be suggesting we were going to win quite comfortably, and I don't know. I just didn't see that. I mean, Chooks, what did you think coming into the game? Like, did you think that we were going to do okay?
I knew it was going to be a tough game. The big teams, especially if they're not doing too well, Arsenal can always be a catalyst for them. That Arsenal game can always be a catalyst for them. And City, especially, still early in the season, they've had a couple of losses. I thought to myself, they're going to see this as an opportunity to make a statement. So I hoped we would be able to win, right? And just go ahead and just take the 3 points. But in my head, I was also being kind of realistic, and I thought a draw here, I think it will still be fine in the auspice of the entire season. Remember, we've got a really difficult start to the season. We're still in the middle of that. And I had said in our last podcast
Yeah. And I think, we went to. I remember we debated that quite a lot in the first pod, and it'd be interesting to see, I guess, how we all feel now, right? Like, because we're one game away from that spell ending, and I think my stance was actually, I think what I said calculated to be 13 points minimum, because what I think I said was, I think we can only lose one and draw one max, and that's like par, which basically means that for it to be par in my mind, we need to be beating Newcastle. And then I think if we beat Newcastle, then I sort of feel how you feel, where I sort of think, it was a really tough start to the season. And if you look at those games, you kind of go, okay, fine, you lost to Liverpool. Okay, sucks. Draw to City. I'm really not on this bandwagon of this as, drawing to City is like this crazily bad thing in this kind of era. Got the stat, right? Like, I think Arteta's the first manager ever to go 5 games unbeaten versus Pep. And we've played 5 games. We've won 2, drawn 3 now. That's pretty bloody good, actually. This is a serious football club, Man City. I know that, they've been a bit patchy, but they're still like a serious team. So, I know. So I know, and I'm additionally a little bit buoyed by the fact that we score a last minute equalizer or whatever. So I'm sort of edging towards slight positivity here. Mize, how you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it felt, even though we got that last minute goal, I think coming out of the stadium, you could sense disappointment, right? Because the game just sort of didn't really go how everyone expected. And I think I said this when we spoke last time on the pod, which was, that level of expectation has just gone up massively, where a couple of years ago, there's no way you're coming out of a 1-1 with City scoring in the last minute. And, the fans were pretty kind of despondent, really. So, but on reflection, like a day later, I think it's still so early in the season. 5 points feels big because Liverpool just, I mean, again, it's only 5 games, but they've obviously just started really, really well in terms of results, maybe not in terms of performances. And it's just kind of frustrating that they're doing what they're doing and we're already behind them, but they're not going to, they're obviously going to drop points at some point through the season, and hopefully we'll go through a bit of a bad patch. And we just need to make sure that 5 points doesn't become 7 and then become 10 or whatever very, very quickly. So I think that Newcastle game, I think the City draw is a decent draw yesterday, as long as we beat City, like you say, Raj. As long as we beat Newcastle. If we go to Newcastle and God forbid we lose, or even if we draw, and let's just say Liverpool win next weekend as well against Palace, then, like I say, the gap increases, and then you look back on this game, the City draw is maybe a bit of a missed opportunity. But look, maybe we should just talk about like the game and how it panned out. And I think first of all, let's talk about the team selection, right? Because it was, I think, surprising for me. Like Raj, you were the first one in our group that pulled out the teams on your phone when we were together, and I think your words were interesting. Did you say interesting, or I think it was? I can't remember the word used.
Maybe I was being common as an interesting.
Yeah, I think it was controversial, maybe controversial team selection, something like that. And we all were like, "Oh, what's Arteta done?" But look, he's gone with the same. Well, look, Saliba back in, which was obviously huge. Huge just from the perspective of, he's one of our 2 best defenders, right? And if he's fit and he's ready to play, then as well as Mosquera's done, I think that's a big boost to the team, to get your other senior centre back in. I think the controversial element is Merino selected as whatever role he kind of plays in the team, but essentially as one of the attacking midfielders, let's say, right? And I think the other controversial selection was obviously Trossard on the left. What were let's go Chooks, because I will ask you, because obviously I was with Raj yesterday. When you saw that team line up, What were your thoughts and how did you feel?
I'm not going to hold back, mate.
Yeah, please don't.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I looked at that team selection, and the first one that jumped out to me was Trossard on the left.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I feel like I'm living Groundhog Day here again. Trossard starting on the left, against one of the biggest teams we're going to face. How is that even a consideration? I was genuinely shocked. And I just thought, we've gone through multiple seasons and then multiple transfer windows. And here we are facing City, and we're at home, and we've got Trossard on the left. How are we here? Then I was even more shocked when I went down the selection and I saw Marino's in. Literally in the 10 position. And I sat back and I thought, so we've got three somewhat just real core midfielders. We're at home. And then you look at the bench and you've got Ranieri, you've got Eze. I mean, that's obvious. And I'll come back to Eze. And I just go, what's happening with this team selection? Why are we here at home? We know that there has been points where we should have really pushed for it and gone against teams, and we haven't. We've been conservative. And you think, but here we are again. Then I thought, okay, maybe there's a tactic here of, clearly there was a tactic here of wanting to have more of a subdued or balanced side, not as much of an attacking side on the pitch initially, and perhaps they'll bring them, to bring some of their more attacking players on as the game goes on. But I still felt this at home, we're meant to be a big team now. We've spent, close to 300 million on transfers, and we're still apprehensive and scared of City at home. And City have not had a good start. They were there for the taking. And lineups like that sends a signal to everybody else in terms of where you think your team is. That was my biggest concern as well. That kind of sends a signal to everybody else of this. I don't think we can really kind of put an attacking side at home against one of our bigger rivals. We need to just make sure we're tight. And I just sat there and I thought, I fear for where this game is going to go. And then when I saw that first goal go in, and I don't want to go too far here, but when I first saw that first goal go in, I knew we were in for a torrid game. I knew it. Because we weren't set up at all to be able to respond to something like that.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I genuinely, it was shock when I saw that lineup. Real shock.
Yeah, and it is kind of baffling in some ways, like we as fans and everyone loves to kind of analyze everything about the game these days, right? But it does feel like, just looking at it really simply, play your best players, and that team, when you look at the players that were starting, and obviously look, there's no Saka, there's no Havertz, due to injuries, and no Saka was on the bench and he came on. But that team was like lacking so much creativity. It's like it's staring you in the face. And I think, your reaction was probably a bit more extreme than mine was, in terms of just, I kind of felt like it almost felt like you say, it was like, keep the control for the initial part of the game. But I don't think Arteta prepared at all to go 1-0 down. Like, I don't think anyone expected that. And obviously we've not conceded a goal from open play this season. And generally we don't concede goals in the way that we did yesterday. But I think you're right. I think the fact that the response as well in that first half, the entire first half, was lackluster. And obviously, there weren't too many talking points in the first half apart from the goal. And I think there was a Madueke chance towards the end. But it did really feel like, and we said it to each other, Raj, like as it was approaching half time, we said like Arteta needs to either change something or have like his team talk needs to be super, like one of the best he's ever put out there in the dressing room, because it just looked really, really kind of flat, and the team was struggling with ideas. And again, that's where you're not playing your creative players. It really, really comes into it. And obviously he addressed that at halftime, partially because Madueke, as we've now found out, picked up a knee injury. But, to go with Saka and Eze, I think he decided to finally take a bit of a risk. Saka's just coming back, first minutes back, I believe. And obviously Eze playing in a position that he's not played for us before. But look, Raj, before, was there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of the first half before we specifically go on to the...
Just before Raj comes in.
Oh yeah, you've done that with your mic, mate. Christ.
Can you hear me okay?
You can hear you super well. That was the problem. It just became super loud all of a sudden. But anyway, go on.
Just before Raj comes in.
Yeah.
So here's one thing to think about. If Odegaard was fit, he would have started the game ahead of Merino. Right? There's no doubt about it. He would have had Odegaard in that position, playing that 10 position, that creative position, regardless of the opposition. Now, we come and we're at home, we're a City, we want to make a statement, and it's early in the season. So there's almost no regrets. You can't really make a mistake at this point, because there's still plenty of football to be played. And you have got, arguably, and I'm actually going to say, in my view, potentially a better 10 in Eze, better than Odegaard, because Odegaard's form has not been that great of late. But if Odegaard was fit, you would have played Odegaard in that role. He's not fit, and you go with Merino. That's my big question mark. You've got Eze there. You signed him. You've been playing him out of position on the left, and he's had some good games, and also he's had some questionable games. I get that, but he's been played out of position. Play him in that attacking midfield role. Let him do what he does, and we saw what he was capable. I was amazed seeing him live, how comfortable he was on the ball. Working in that kind of central part of the pitch, both forward and also more in the midfield and the second third and even the back third where he created the goal from. He picked the ball up from not far outside of his own goal area, moved forward, and he was still behind the halfway line when he pinged the ball for Martinelli to score. How could you not start him? This is the frustration that I just currently have. All of this money spent on all of these players to really bolster the team, that is an obvious one, and you don't take the opportunity. Instead, you start someone who you're effectively playing massively out of position. Raj, over to you, mate.
Are you done?
Right for now, but I'm going to come back in, and you better hope I don't cut you off when I do.
So, look, with regard to the selection, I mean, the biggest one that I was like, what the fuck was Trossard. Like, to be honest, that was the main thing by far, because, going back again, I thought that this was going to be a game where both managers would set up to say, okay, look, actually, we don't want to lose this game. It's going to be an edge case game, firstly. Yeah. But Trossard made no sense to me whatsoever, because like that would be even thinking, trying to get in Arteta's head, whether I would have liked it or not, me getting into his head, I would never have thought he would have started Trossard, because I couldn't think of a tactical reason why that would be the case. But anyway, he did. I don't know, man. Like, I think that there is that element. You've got to even look back at the Liverpool game. I think early season, when big teams play one another, they don't want to lose. When big teams play another, I know this is like everyone really likes the idea of the big teams playing another and someone making a statement, but I don't think it works like that when you at the top level with these managers anymore. I think at the beginning of the season in particular, you don't want to lose those big games, and draws are fine, because that's someone who's your rival. They haven't got any points over you. It's fine. So I think that does come into play a bit. I do think on the face of it, it's really weird to be at home and not play Eze as a 10 regardless, though, because if we think about the fact that Odegaard was this single point of failure last season, then we went and signed Eze, and there was this whole thing about, oh, well, Eze's predominantly really a left-sided 10. Can he really play on the left proper? And we're not even playing him at 10 when we get the opportunity to play him as a 10 at home. That felt a little bit weird on the face of it. I don't buy into this narrative so much that Mourinho is this really defensive selection. For some reason, he's categorized as a DM by a lot of the media or whatever. That's provably untrue. I mean, this is a guy who played centre forward for us for a long period of last season. I mean, he played centre midfield for Spain. During the international break, he scored 4 goals, including a hat-trick. He's not a defensive midfielder. He's an attacking midfielder. He's just not the sort of guy who's gonna he's not going to play some funky through balls. He's not going to dribble. He's not that kind of guy. He's more of a box crasher. He's kind of more the Fellaini type of old, I suppose. Look, all that being said, it was a team that was set up to be tight. And Chooks, to your point, I said exactly the same. When we conceded the goal, I think the first thing I said to Mize is, yeah, but this lineup isn't set up to go 1-0 down. Right. It was just painful knowing we were 1-0 down with that lineup, because I thought, well, he's got to change it now. And I think so. There's a point which I'd like to kind of, I think would be good for a discussion here, right? Is that we're in the era of 5 subs. Yeah, we're in the era of 5 subs. That's a very different era to the era of 3 subs. And what I mean by that is you're able to change half your lineup. You're half, broadly half your lineup. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're able to do that in a game. And Arteta keeps on telling us in his interviews, he keeps on talking about this idea of substitutes not really being substitutes and then being finishers or impactors. And he keeps on saying that stuff. And everyone keeps sort of laughing it off because we're like, oh, he's just trying to dress it up. He's just trying to make his bench players kind of, seem happy and all that kind of stuff. I think this is absolutely untrue. I think we need to take him for face value a lot more. There's a few things we know about Arteta, right? We know that he has these very close relationships with coaches from outside of football. There's this famous WhatsApp group, if you like, where he's got Sean McVay from the Rams. He's got a couple of rugby coaches. They're constantly sharing ideas about kind of motivation, but also kind of things that might be transferable across sports, right? Every other major sport has this idea of impact subs, right? They have this idea of actually having people who are really good. They are they're not your second best players. They can be your best players at doing a specific thing. And they are best placed in a game to be coming off the bench, because that's how you see this game panning out. So it's not a case of I start my best 11, and if that doesn't work out, I try something else. Arteta is completely buying into that idea, right? He is completely buying into this 5 sub world of going, the team that I start with is the team that I think I need to manage this certain type of game that it's going to be for a period of time. And then I think the game's going to be like this, and then I'm going to use this guy. And then I think it's going to be like this, and then I'm going to use this guy. He's very, you could just look back at all of his games now, and this becomes very, very clear, whether we like it or not. So we have to sort of avoid frustrating ourselves a little bit, because we clearly don't have a manager who thinks of it in the way that we traditionally do. He's not going to start his best 11 all the time. He's going to think, this is the 11 I need to see out how I believe this game is going to pan out for the first 45 minutes or whatever. But then we can disagree with whether that was successful or not. That wasn't successful yesterday. That idea, it did not work out because we went a goal down. And then it was well, what do we do from here? I think he would have also not really banked on the idea that City were going to defend in the way that they did. Right, that was real parking the bus stuff. Every sub they made progressively, just apart from Savinho coming on at the end, every sub was a defensive substitution. Taking off Haaland, it was mental. I didn't see that coming. And then so Arteta is therefore reacting in ways in which I think that he probably didn't want to react. He had to change the games in ways that he didn't think that he would have to at the stages that he did. There's little things I think we don't know. We don't know how fit Saka was. We don't know whether the substitution was completely influenced by Madueke's injury, because I'm a bit skeptical about that one as well, because surely if the guy was injured, we would have taken him off before halftime, because now, apparently he's having scans on his ACL and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I digress. Point is, lineup frustrated me mainly because of Trossard. The Marina thing didn't frustrate me as much, but I do actually agree with you, Trooks. I think Eze's there, you're at home, start the guy at 10, like don't overthink it. And yeah, and at the end of the day, I think the team that we played in the second half, like clearly we had a lot more creativity, we had a lot more about us. But I mean, maybe this is a question, or maybe I'll pass this off to you guys, whoever wants to answer it. But Trooks, you said like Eze came on and you were really, really impressed. I don't know. For me, I really like Eze, and I think he's going to be great. I think he will be great. Don't get me wrong. I still get the impression that he's playing almost a little bit starstruck. Like he's still doing this thing where it feels like he's still really, really happy to be here. And there's something kind of holding him back a little bit. Maybe it's harsh saying that now. He's already got 2 assists to his name. So, clearly he's not like that overawed. But there was something about it where I thought he still could have done a little bit more when he came on in that second half. And it felt like he took a while to grow into it. So I don't know if Arteta is seeing that on the training pitch as well. And he's thinking, is he quite ready to be there as a 10? I don't know.
So just 3 things I want to say, mate, just in terms of what you said there, that I want to come back on. 1, Trossard. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I hate Trossard. I love Trossard. But I love Trossard, and if you're talking about game management, I love Trossard coming on off the bench. Yeah. Trossard is the player when the game is loose, when the latter stages, and everyone, and is much more just flowing, and there's an ebb and a flow because the structure's kind of gone.
Yeah.
Trossard is.
We were trying to think about this in the pub. We were trying to think about a game where Trossard started that he did really well at, and we couldn't think. This is before the game, so yeah, completely with you. Yeah, go on.
Trossard is a chaos player. He is a chaos. When the game is just in a bit of chaos, like I said, it's loose. Structure's gone. People are tired. That's when you bring on Trossard because his intelligence and the way he thinks, he can read what's in front of him, and that's when he can cause an absolute impact. But from starting with the structure and to be able to deliver it just doesn't work. Second thing that I wanted to touch upon was City. And also reading and understanding what you're about to face. We played 5 days ago. City played 2.5 days ago. So they were coming in somewhat jaded. They weren't good because the way that City reacted as a team is what we would have done. We've got players that have just had a relatively tough Champions League game. They are tired. That all of a sudden the probability and the chance of injuries go much higher. So the game plan had to reflect that. And then that's also why you saw the likes of Haaland being taken off, etc. Because Pep had to manage his players. And Arteta must have known that because we go through the same things. We've gone through the same things for years.
I don't know if you can say that though, right? Because this isn't the first time that City or any of these big teams have had like 2 or 3 days before a game. And I think the point is, I mean, in the whole history, in Man City's history under Pep, they have never had this little possession in a game. They've never managed a game in this way in the whole time. So even though I agree with what you're saying, I'm sure like there was some game management, there was probably some people who were tired. It was absolutely no way predictable that they would end up setting up in the way that they did. They've never ever done it before.
I mean, I don't know, mate, because I know when we've had a period like that, Champions League midweek, and then we have to play, let's say on a Wednesday, then we have to play again on a Saturday. You can tell sometimes there is rotation in the team, or he'll do a bit of a funny lineup, and we all talk about it. Oh, we only played it, just a couple of days ago. So there's probably going to be an element of game management here. We talk about it every week. So there's no reason why City would be any different.
There's tactics though in it. That's it.
Yes, it is tactics. You're right. It is tactics. But there must have been some kind of anticipation, or predictability of, and even saying to the guys, we should go for it. They only played 2 days ago. They will be somewhat tired. We played 5 days ago. We are fresher. We should go for this game. Not playing as if both teams played last Saturday and we're playing again the following Saturday. That's where I'm going. There was question marks when I saw the lineup. Just the whole, and when you look at the thing in its entirety, there was something uncomfortable about it in terms of the mentality of what I saw in front of me going into that game at home against a team that just played 2 days earlier. We'd played 5 days earlier with the lineup that we had, and especially with the options that we had on the bench. I thought that's why I said I was shocked. I was shocked. And then, sorry, remind me of your third point, mate. The last point you were making.
Well, it was about Eze, where I was basically
Yes.
talking about, you know, how do we feel that? I mean, even in this game in isolation, like,
Yeah.
I mean, but it sounded like you were pretty impressed, like from the word go.
I was. When I saw him, so his movement, his calmness, his reading of the game, he did not look to me perturbed, right? Every time he collected the ball, he was really relaxed playing in that position. And he was always looking for chances and opportunity. That was what I saw from where I was sat. I saw somebody that was in real comfort in that position. On the left, different, but playing in that position in the center, he just looked so relaxed in every motion. I was impressed.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, just to lead you into it a little bit, like when you look at the stats, the individual stats, and this kind of also relates to something Charles is saying in the comments. Charles is basically talking about how possession should translate to attacking threat, and we had nothing. And I agree with Charles. So sorry, I wasn't saying that, you know, we set up in a certain way and actually, you know, that ended up being positive in some way. Yeah, absolutely. We basically created next to nothing, and actually, so that's kind of like my build-up point to Mize is if you look at our individual players and the individual XG or XA that they had, they're all low. They're all really low. Like, and even you know, the attacking players that came on, Saka and Eze, I think their combined XG and XA, like each was sort of 0.3. So you're basically saying whatever they did, they created like kind of 0.3 worth of goals, really. Yeah. Creating, or, you know, from a goal scoring opportunity. It's really low. It's really, really low. So even when we had everyone on the pitch and it was, you know, and we were doing more, you know, in that second half, statistically, they didn't really do that much. They didn't really hurt City. So I mean, what do you think? I'm maybe linking that to Eze because obviously being in the 10, there's a lot of responsibility on you in that role.
Well, I think on the Eze point, right? Like I'm probably more with Chooks in the sense that I feel like not just yesterday, the 45 minutes that he played yesterday, but since he's come into the team, I feel similarly to kind of Zubimendi as well, even Mascara. Like I think a lot of these players have settled really quickly, and Eze, I don't really see that kind of what you said, Raj, about he's sort of maybe playing within himself a bit. I know that they weren't the words exactly that you used, but I feel like he's come into the team and I feel like he's got the ability to express himself. And we saw what he can do when he's got a bit of space and time on the ball, like he did yesterday in the final minutes with the sort of chips through ball to Martinelli for the goal. And obviously had that shot as well that Donnarumma saved. I think that came from a corner, which was, you know, again, for example, you put Odegaard in that position. Does he shoot? Probably not. He probably looks to get it back out, recycle it back out wide to someone, or looks inside or tries to cross it. So I feel like, you know, I don't really have that concern around Eze and sort of his confidence or his, just him playing within himself. I haven't really seen that yet. The stats, I think you have to, the context of the context that you have to add to those stats that you mentioned, Raj. You know, we were playing yesterday. As soon as City got their goal, they had no intention of trying to get a second unless it was on the break. Unless it was on the break, and it really felt like it was almost one of those games. If you changed the team name from City to, I don't know, I mean, look, a West Ham or a West Ham or a Forest or a lesser team, you wouldn't have been surprised just by the way that City approached basically almost the entire game after they scored. And as it got later and later, it did feel like City were just, obviously holding on to 3 points, but happy to hold on to a 1-0. So I think it's quite hard to sort of judge those low, you know, XG, XA, whatever stats you want to look at when you add the context of we felt like we threw everything at them albeit we didn't necessarily create loads of clear-cut openings. But when a team is defending the way that they did, and they were playing kind of 5 at the back, and they were bringing on really defensive substitutions to shore it up even more, it makes it really, really hard. What I will say is, I think when you look at, like, Madueke had a pretty good first half, and obviously he's been pretty impressive for us in general. And unfortunate that he came off, but I think you just saw Saka come in, and okay, yeah, he didn't necessarily directly create anything, but you see the kind of the fear that the other team have when he's on the ball, and it almost, that kind of space that it seemed to create for other players. And similar to what Chooks was saying, Eze picked up the ball in lots of different quite dangerous areas, I thought, and we seem to be getting corner after corner in that second half. Like, it felt like we had this bombardment of corners, and those corners are basically coming from us having, territorial advantage and possession, and we're trying to get the ball in, and the crosses are getting blocked, and therefore we're winning corners. And on another day, one of those Declan Rice crosses or one of those Saka crosses from a corner probably is a goal, but I guess City defended them pretty well. They've got Donnarumma in goal now. He's obviously, arguably he's not that great from set pieces, some say, but at the same time, he's a pretty kind of tall, athletic keeper, and he seemed to.
He's just won best goalkeeper in the world.
Has he just won it?
Oh, half an hour ago,
yeah. So I don't know. I think stats are one thing, but we obviously watched that second half pretty close up, coming, Arsenal shooting at our end, and it felt like it was more of a second half where City just went deeper and deeper and deeper, aside from the goal, where obviously they actually were quite high up the pitch. And yeah, we didn't necessarily test Donnarumma too many times, but equally there was very, very little threat from City the whole of that second half. Your question, Raj, are you kind of alluding to like a bit more of a bigger problem around, which has maybe been a problem like aimed at Arsenal, or a bit of a criticism aimed at Arsenal in the past, where it's like, yeah, we obviously control the ball in a lot of our games, and we tend to have 60s, 65, 70% possession in a lot of our games, but we're not offering the kind of cutting edge threat that maybe we need to be more.
Yeah, because I personally don't buy. Not that I don't buy. It sounds like really harsh. I think that City defending that lead, yeah, they clearly did, and they clearly went to kind of low block it for basically 45 minutes. Right, and it is what it is, and it's going to happen, and we're going to be playing teams like that. And then you'd argue that City have really good players. One thing to be careful of: City's players aren't used to doing that. So just because City's have a lot of very good players, that's not to say that there are teams kind of with worse players in inverted commas who are actually better at doing that than City are, right? So my concern a little bit is we basically spent 45 minutes where we had Gyökeres, Saka, Madueke, Martinelli, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Ethan Nwaneri, all on the pitch, basically for 45 minutes. And essentially the goal that we scored, which was class, by the way, was the one time City made this mistake by playing a really high line momentarily. Like, they went to a high line momentarily. Eze plays a class ball, and Martinelli scores a worldy finish. Yeah. So well done. Well done, Arsenal. Well done for exploiting that. But for 45 minutes against a deeper block, with all of that talent on the pitch, we did nothing. Donnarumma was chilling out. Donnarumma did not have much to do at all. That does concern me, because we have had pretty decent preseason. I think we're kind of into the season now. I do worry that we aren't really finding ways of getting Gyökeres into games as well as I think we need to, and we need to address that pretty quickly. But then just with those individuals on the pitch, I guess my point is that you've got enough individual quality to make stuff happen. Even if everyone isn't clicking, you've got individual quality. And so I do have a bit of a criticism on the team, whether it's to Arteta and to the players, that I think if you want to win leagues, you've got to do a little bit more than this. It's just how it is. That's just it. Otherwise, we'll be at the end of the season and go like, oh, yeah, that was a shame, wasn't it?
I think the only counter I'd say, it's not really a counter, but I think that's where the team selection, I know we've kind of spoken about it, that's where the team selection comes into it even more. And you go and what you were saying, Raj, around a lot of these kind of big club managers, they look at these early season games, they just don't want to lose them, which I get. But the point, all of the kind of the players that you mentioned that were on the pitch, but ultimately we were chasing the game. And when you're chasing the game and the other team are going to sit on their 1-0 or whatever it is that they've got, even if they're holding on to a 0-0, which has happened so many times at the Emirates, it makes it so hard. So it's almost like you've got to, like Chooks was saying, you've got to take the game to the opposition, especially being the home team, especially being the stronger team. Let's be honest, we are now, and really go and try and get that first goal. And once you get the first goal, then it changes the whole complexion of the game. Whereas in City do have to come out, and then your players, like whoever it might have been, whether it's Trossard or it was Marino or as Eze, whoever was on the pitch, can then maybe express themselves a bit more, and then you start to be able to play your own game a bit more because there's a bit more space for the attacking players to do something. Whereas it was basically the opposite, right? And so like I don't know, I kind of feel like you could look at it either way.
But let me flip the question.
But sorry, just before you do, the one thing I do want to say is, look, we are not right professional managers. We are not professionals.
So you sometimes talk like you think you are.
Well, I just talk like I'm a cut above you guys. That's all, right? But I don't think like I'm a professional manager. But we, looking at that lineup, knew that there was a problem. Now, imagine a Pep Guardiola looking at that lineup, not a pundit in the stands, literally, one of the best to ever be a manager in the game, looking at that lineup, seeing Trossard on the left, seeing Marino on the 10, Madueke's on the right. He would have known exactly how to nullify that threat, because he's looking at it and he's going, I don't think there's a lot of threat coming from Trossard, so you know what? Give him the space. As always, just make sure that a lot of that is congested, on the side of Madueke, because they'll try and back him up with Marino, and we can probably somewhat nullify a lot of this game, right? Apart from that, there's not much else kind of threat that's going to be coming. And like I said, we knew how this game was going to go. We all thought the same thing, even though we didn't meet up. But looking at the lineup and looking at what was going to happen, we all thought the same thing. So that's what I mean. Imagine a Pep. Now, which is why it frustrates me, why you then start with that team, why you don't put more threats, more things for City to think about. You start with that team that actually City are going, okay, right, fine, they might make it a bit congested, but there's actually not that much threat going forward. There's not a huge amount. I can see how I'm going to nullify this.
But does it come back to that point that you actually said before, like you opened with, which I think is fair, right? So we aren't managers. So we are looking at something very obvious here, right? And we're basically saying, well, isn't this obvious? But in fairness, like, we should all have the humility to know that, like, firstly, not only is Arteta a Premier League manager, there is no manager who has a better record against Pep. There isn't one. So if there's one manager who knew how to play against this Pep team or tried to think how Pep might think, and I know I'm being kind of glass half full about it, because I think we are right to now criticize because it didn't work out. So we are right to criticize, and that's kind of part of the fun of being a fan. But like, just Miles, I guess the point I wanted to ask you, right, is that adversity is going to happen during games, right? So like, we picked a lineup that we think wasn't necessarily assertive enough. Okay, whatever. But shit happens. Say if we had picked a more attacking lineup, we could have still gone a goal down. Like those things happen, yeah. So I guess my issue is we went a goal down, annoying, naughty Arteta picking like this like negative lineup, and it didn't work out. Like whatever, like we say whatever. But there was lots and lots of time left in the game, and I think we were all pleasantly surprised that at halftime he brought on Eze and Saka. There was that feeling of, oh right, like he's going to do the subs early, right? That's really good, like whatever. I still feel there was more than enough time when you're at home with those guys on the pitch to be more influential and make more happen than they did. And whether that's a criticism of Arteta, because you could still say, well, okay, the players on the pitch, but maybe they're instructed to play a certain way. I'm not convinced about that anymore. Like, I do think there's a certain amount of it that is Arteta's fault. When a manager's been here for this long, obviously they have to take a large blame in things that go wrong and a lot of praise when things go right. I get that, but I'm a little bit frustrated, like when I look at some of our players in that second half, and I just think maybe you could have done that little bit more. And you know, there are a few of those players that I think we have some players who get fantastic PR, and I think there are some players who don't necessarily have the same PR agents. If I do,
don't set the fence, Raj. Let's say some names. Otherwise,
I was
come on, man. Come on.
I was about to go. What I was saying is, like, someone who gets good PR and deserves it, yeah, is Saka, because even at his worst, he gives you a 7 out of 10. And he genuinely, at his worst, will give you a 7 out of 10, but he usually gives you more than that. So I feel like he is in this category alone, yeah? But I think you've got people like Marino, like Havertz, for example. When they have a good game, everyone's like, oh, right, well done. Like, it's about time, that sort of vibe. And when they don't have necessarily a good game, it's like, see, it's that kind of thing. I genuinely think that's general in our fan base, a lot of our fan base. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone in particular. I'm saying generally our fan base kind of tends. I think Declan Rice is a very good example of someone where there's some, like, I don't know if I'm just seeing something that, you know, I don't know what it feels to me that this guy, like, is so good. He's so incredible. Genuinely, like, the phrase "unplayable on his day" is absolutely accurate for Declan Rice. And I think for the final third of last season was just like consistently kind of world class or whatever. But he still seems to be someone for me who has this just phenomenal PR of when he puts a 6 out of 10, everyone forgets that he ever played that 6 out of 10. And no one seems to ever think that it's Declan Rice's fault that things didn't go well. And I'm not saying it was his fault things didn't go well yesterday, but there was an element at times where I was like, Declan Rice, you are you're one of the best midfielders in the world. You are capable of scoring goals. You are capable of doing all kinds of things. I'm not seeing anything from you in this moment. I'm not seeing you drive this team forward. And I feel like I could go and cite games in the past, like from last season, where I could say, yeah, he should have done more in that game. He should have done more in that game. But for whatever reason, he seems to sort of get away with it. And this isn't me trying to say, like, let's put it all on him. But this is going back to, I think, my original point of we had the players on the pitch. I don't understand why the players that we had on the pitch with the abilities that they had could not have done more to unlock that City defense in that second half. Because, mate, we were moments away from losing at home. It was an exceptional finish from Martinelli, an exceptional pass from Eze, taking advantage of one mistake City did with their defensive line. But when they were playing that deeper block, we couldn't do anything inspirational. And that worries me. I have to say, it worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm like you say. I mean, look, Declan Rice, without going into sort of specifically his performance yesterday, because I don't know, man. Like, you could probably say the same about maybe like even someone like a Zubimendi. I think we still don't really know. Like, we know what Zubimendi's about, and obviously got a couple of goals last week. But you could say the same. Like, did he impose himself on the game like you'd expect him to? Maybe not. I think the biggest one for me is, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault, and it hasn't been his fault in these sort of bigger games like Old Trafford, Anfield, and yesterday. But Gyökeres is obviously, I mean, I don't know what it is really in terms of, you know, it feels like he's doing a lot of the right things. Yeah. Like, you know, the kind of basic things that you'd expect your striker to do, you know, causing it or making himself a nuisance, trying the kind of runs in behind over and over again. You know, we saw that fight he had with, not the fight, but the battle he had with De Ligt in the game at Old Trafford, first game of the season. So you kind of see that kind of physicality that he's got, but ultimately, you know, he's going to be judged on goals, and he's going to be judged on him taking his chances. But at the moment, he's obviously not really getting that many chances at all. I think, was there one yesterday where there was a cross, and was that yesterday? And he was behind it, but it was almost like he was a bit slow to react in some way. I don't know. Like, I think I need to watch that one back again. But I think he's the one where, and we said it to each other yesterday, Raj. I don't know how you feel about this, Cheeks, but we said to each other, like, this was a Kai Havertz game. As in, if you're gonna play, I see your reaction there, Cheeks. But I think if you're gonna,
He scored twice against him last season, didn't he?
yeah, and I think if you're looking for a striker that's going to, I don't know. I just feel like Gyökeres yesterday didn't do really anything at all, and I'm not saying that's necessarily his fault, but ultimately he's the kind of player that either he's on the end of chances or he's picking the ball up in that kind of left channel maybe and driving towards the goal, and he didn't really get an opportunity to do either of those things. And I think if you're going to play someone like a Trossard, for example, who can kind of come inside and play almost like a second striker type role, if you're going to start him, then maybe obviously Havertz wasn't fit, but if Havertz was fit, then he's maybe a better option for someone like Trossard to play off. Just as an example of where something may have been different if Havertz had been fit. I'm not saying we would have won the game. I'm not saying it would have gone differently, but you know, I feel like it's these kind of big games that Havertz does actually do quite well in. And like you say, Raj, there is this narrative that people just don't really rate him at all. But yeah, Chooks, I can tell that you're itching to come back at me on that.
I don't agree. I don't agree with you guys on a number of things here. I don't agree with you guys. I think Zubimendi's been consistent, and I thought with the game that we had yesterday, he did the job that we needed him to do. Right, in that kind of holding midfielder position, he was able to also at times dictate the pace of the game. He could also switch up play. So no, I thought Zubimendi actually had another consistent game yesterday. Declan Rice, I mean, he had driving runs. It was actually Declan Rice's tackle just outside the box that enabled us to pick up the ball from Saka to then pass it to Eze for Eze to ping the ball. But Rice did what he does what he always does, which is as much as he can, he will get in contact with the attacking play, but he will also go back and do the dirty work where it's required. It was Declan Rice's tackle right outside our box that enabled us to set up that play. Gyökeres,
I get that. We're talking about margins here. I'm just talking about margins, attacking margins.
I understand. I understand it.
And just for context, for the rest of your analysis on this, he got an XG of 0 yesterday. Yeah. So to be clear, he offered Declan Rice, right? So he offered 0 from an attacking perspective. Okay. So I'm not, again, I know that he has broader stuff. I'm talking about in a game where we're playing against a deep block for 45 minutes. I expect more of all of them. I'm a bit more sympathetic on Zubimendi, by the way. I do agree, because I think at the end of the day, he is more of a 6 in our world, and Declan is this kind of all action guy, and £100 million player, one of the best midfielders in the world. But I'm just giving you context as to why I'm getting a bit frustrated in performance yesterday. But please go, carry on.
Gyökeres, I feel as if he is still someone who is finding his feet. Yeah. He is used to normally in that sporting team playing with space behind, defenders, running onto the ball. He's playing a lot with his back to goal. Well, certainly yesterday he was, and there's a lot more battles as opposed to him running onto ball. I'm hoping that there will be an opportunity to unlock him. I still think that he's got a lot to offer. And you know me, I can be quite critical sometimes of our players, but he's not one that I'm critical of yet. Actually, I think the biggest issue that we did, as you boys will know, because we were messaging about it quite a lot over the transfer window, is missing the opportunity to really solve that left-wing problem, right? And I think that's because at the moment, personally, my view, we're still very predictable. Everyone still knows what our left-wing offers. The right wing, especially Madueke, he's come in, he's done fantastically well, but people know our right wing is where the most potent threat comes from. So they just basically load up in that area. And we don't have other ways of unlocking defenses. That's why I'm not blaming Declan, because he's not a creative, this kind of mastermind attacking midfielder. He's an all action. He needs an Odegaard or an Eze next to him. That's when you can unlock the true potential of him, because he can then be a bit more unpredictable. But when you've got Marino there, then there's nothing kind of coming from a creative flair player. So you then know, okay, that little block. My hope is Madueke is going to play on that left eventually with Saka on the right, and that will then unlock, and potentially with Eze or Odegaard, I guess they're probably interchangeable in that 10, and that will really unlock the team. But when we don't have that optionality, I think we're quite predictable, and that ultimately comes from the manager, right? And the tactics the manager does.
Yeah. But let's remember, right? Like we're gonna keep having injuries through the season, like everyone is, right? And it's never gonna be we're never gonna have like those perfect lineups in certain games. Like people are gonna need to chip in different ways. There's going to be games where things just aren't working, and when we talk about winning the league, you're talking about these little margins. It's very easy to look at Liverpool, right, over the last kind of few games and be relatively critical and basically say like they got really lucky and whatever. Like, yeah, there's been a certain element of luck in like some of their games to get it wrong, right? But they're basically pulling stuff out of the bag when they don't quite deserve to, and that. And you could argue that our equalizer is us pulling something out of the bag at the last minute. You kind of whatever. I'm worried about a season of regret if we keep on kind of rationalizing some of this stuff. We keep on sort of saying, well, it's not this person, it's not really, and you can empathize with this and you can sympathize with this, and it's like fine, I kind of get it. But let us remember there are going to be games this season we get screwed over by a bad decision. That's going to happen. There's gonna be things that like happen, and we're gonna end up probably dropping points when we don't deserve to drop points. I think we need to just figure out ways of taking control in certain situations a bit better than we have been. But like, just to kind of go back on your Gyökeres point, I actually think we're all in agreement about the Gyökeres point that it's not really him so much as it is like us having to get used to him and figure it out. And this is what I just hope we figure that out quicker and just figure out like whether it's on the training pitch, whether it's players just being a little bit kind of smarter, because it is interesting. Like when you look at the Leeds game and you look at the Nottingham Forest game, it's very interesting that Gyökeres' goals happened pretty quickly after half time, where suddenly there was the first time was the Calafiori ball over the top directly, early ball over the top directly to him into the channel. And the second time was Calafiori early ball over the top to Eze to first time cross for Gyökeres. It doesn't surprise me that those things happen after half time, because it feels like Arteta's probably gone, guys, he's offering these runs, do this more or whatever. Our players are going to just need to have to, like, I think, get with the program a little bit, and yeah, because like, look, man's just won best striker in the world at the Ballon d'Or awards, right? Like, I mean, he's not an average striker; he's a very good striker. Like, so hopefully we get it right. It's just worry about the time.
Man, honestly, it's interesting because when we started the podcast is when we were talking about the number of points, and I kind of reminded you of my conscious brain before the season started, and I said I want to go into these first 6 games, and I think if we come up with plus 10, to 12 points, we're gonna be all right. Because I don't want to have my doom and gloom hat on just because we've had a couple of it's a difficult period, right? It's a difficult period, these first 6 games. I am actually really optimistic. I really am. I think after this period, from what I have seen, these have been some tough games that, yes, Arteta didn't quite get some of the thinking right. But once we come out of this tough spell, I honestly believe we're going on a run. I'm gonna put my cards on the table.
I think so too.
I think we're going to run, and I think Liverpool, because they've not had anywhere near the injuries we've had, and we've actually navigated it pretty well. They're going to drop points. They have been as lucky can be, and I think by the time we hit Christmas, that league is going to look very different in our favor, right? So that's why I know what you're saying about rationalizing things, but that's why I'm saying when I look at the likes of Zubimendi's performance and Declan Rice's performance, I'm actually buoyed by it. I'm optimistic about it. I think against the rest, after this difficult period, against the rest of this league, we're looking good. I think the defense as well, and as stubborn as they are, fantastic. I love what I'm seeing from Madueke. My biggest problem is on the left-hand side, and he's gonna have to fix that. But like I said, maybe Madueke goes on the left. Gyökeres, I'm still very, very optimistic about it. And I think we're set up well coming out of this period. If we get that, ideally 13 points after next week, for me, it's genuinely game on. Because in no way with Liverpool's performance that they've been showing that they're going to maintain this. No chance.
So yeah, Chooks, like you talked about this end of this kind of tough start to the season, and we've got, like you say, Newcastle in a week's time, just under a week's time, and it's interesting what you said about Liverpool as well, because I was looking at their fixtures earlier, and I think we were talking about it in the pub. I think Aaron was actually sort of saying they've got some tough games coming up. Just looking at their fixtures in all competitions, outside of the League Cups, in the league they've got Palace away next weekend. They go to Galatasaray in the Champions League. Then it's Chelsea away, United at home, Frankfurt away in the Champions League, Brentford away in the league, then Villa at home, then Real Madrid at home in the Champions League. So that's, like you say, Chooks, I don't see them. I mean, obviously they don't need to win all those games, but I can't see them winning all of those league games. There's definitely going to be a couple of drop points. That's all we really need at this stage, right? So I think it just puts the pressure is on us though, right? For Sunday. The fact that we didn't win yesterday, if Liverpool do go and get a result against Palace and we don't against Newcastle, that gap gets even bigger. And it just makes every game after that a must win. So I think we're all looking at Sunday in St James's Park and thinking, can we sort of turn our fortunes around, because it's been a bit of a struggle the last few seasons. I mean, looking at Newcastle, just look, they haven't really had a great start to the season. They currently sit in 13th place in the league. Won a game, drawn 3, and lost a game. They've only scored 3 goals. They've only conceded 3 goals. So a bit of a mixed bag. I don't really know what to make of Newcastle's start to the season. They haven't really had that tough of a start. Villa, I mean, okay, fine. Newcastle, sorry, they played Liverpool, but yeah, went away to Villa, played Liverpool at home, and obviously lost. Drew away at Leeds. They beat Wolves just 1-0, and Wolves have been pretty bad so far this season. And then they just drew to Bournemouth away just before we played on Sunday yesterday. I've not watched much of Newcastle, to be honest, this season. But look, going into Sunday, guys, and it's still, we've got a League Cup game in between, so anything could happen in that, just in terms of who Arteta chooses to pick, and we could potentially pick up a couple of injuries. Hopefully, he obviously goes with a sort of a second string, and we don't run that risk. But just looking ahead to Sunday, and like I say, the struggles that we've had at St James's Park in the last few seasons, and we're saying now, 6th game of the season, that we basically have to go there and win. Like, how confident are you guys feeling, Raj?
I'm pretty optimistic, to be honest. I think the fact that we got the last minute equalizer is going to be pretty big in the dressing room, as much as they would have liked to win, obviously. Like, I don't think, as much as I'm criticizing how we were in the second half, like, a draw against City is not a bad result, man. Like, we can't beat them every year. Like, it's, at some point, whatever. Anyway, the point is, I think you called it, Miles. I think you analysed, even without watching Newcastle, as you said, they haven't been good, man. Like, they've not. Like, I hope we just play the team and not the occasion, not the history, and not whatever. We should be going out to St James's Park and beating Newcastle. Yeah, I know they're going to have some players back from suspension, but also like some players who were injured, and I think they rotated massively. It was really hard to figure out why they started with the lineup they did the other day. By the way, even in the Champions League and in this game, just gone against Bournemouth, it was weird because the starting 11 seemed like they had rested a bunch of players, but then you're like, why are you resting them? What need you have to rest some of these players, because they were on the bench. So I don't quite know what Eddie Howe's thinking and what the drivers are and whatever, but we should be beating them. I think we'll win 2-0. Like, I think we'll win 2-0. Look, at the goal we conceded yesterday, that's the one dumb defensive thing we've done this season. I mean, like, we don't make mistakes defensively. Like, we're so good defensively. I think we'll put a really good defensive performance. I think we'll win 2-0.
Do you That's obviously positive prediction. Just before Ask Chooks for
And I'm on a roll, aren't I? By the way, I'm on a roll.
You are on a roll.
2-0 against Bilbao and 1-1 yesterday.
So hopefully you're right. But I was just going to ask you as well, like in terms of, because obviously we've spent a lot of this episode just talking about lineup and selection, team selection. Like, do you think Arteta will go? I'm not necessarily saying in terms of personnel, but I'm more looking at that midfield three, right? Do you think he plays Marino again now that, I mean, look, you've got a few more options, right? Okay, Madueke is out, but I'm just talking about the kind of general kind of like the attacking players that are available, right? I'm not saying specifically positions, but Saka's now back. Potentially Odegaard might be back. We have no idea at this stage. Like, what do you think he'll go with that kind of solid midfield three again, given the opposition and the where we're going, St James's Park?
So I thought Odegaard might have been fit for yesterday, and I did that just because of his program notes, because he said in that they release online, you know, they do these things, they release the captain's notes online before the game, and he basically was talking about how hard he was working to try and get ready for this game.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like being fit for Man City wasn't completely out of the question. Like it seems like that was something they hoped might be able to happen. So if they hope that might have been able to happen for Man City, fine, it didn't happen. Surely he must be close, therefore, to coming back and may be able to come back against Newcastle. And I think if he's fit enough to play, I think we have to start him. I think we absolutely have to start him. If he didn't start Eze at 10 against City, I don't know if he will do it away at Newcastle. So maybe he will go with the Marino thing. I'm not as much, you know, I'm really not that negative around the idea of Marino starting. But Marino starting and Trossard playing on the left, that can't happen again. Like, you know, whatever Arteta thought he had up his sleeve, whatever, let bygones be bygones. But, you know, when we're going against Newcastle, that can't happen again. It'll be interesting with the lineup because he might go Martinelli on the left wing.
I think he will.
Because if Madueke is injured and Saka is fit again, he might go Martinelli left and Madueke right. Sorry. And Saka right. And then what does he do with Eze? I don't know. I do think we're going to have to get used to Arteta liking having a couple of the big players on the bench in a game. I think he likes the idea of being able to sort of pull out, you know, a big player, like, and not necessarily have like all his trump cards on the pitch from the start. I think we might have to just get used to that. So it wouldn't surprise me if Eze doesn't start again, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see. Otherwise, I think everything else will be fairly predictable in the lineup.
All right, you're going 2-0. Chooks,
yeah.
Feeling as confident?
What am I hearing? What is this? Oh my God. We are talking about a Newcastle team that doesn't have Isaac, right?
Yeah.
We should have absolutely no fear going to that. But that team, the reason why that team is not working, they've lost their confidence because they've lost a big star player up front. So they don't know where the goals are coming from. That's why they're either drawing or they're losing. There's not many goals coming. So their fears are being realized. You know, people said that team was Isaac, that Isaac carried a lot of that team. And they were saying, oh, no, they sold him for a lot of money. And look, lo and behold, the start of the season is just a mess. And the longer it goes, the worse it's going to become. And so all of a sudden, they're now realizing all of that rhetoric is true. We need to be going into that game full of confidence that we can get a result at St James's Park. So that's kind of like the first point. I just think we have to be going there confident of the win.
How's it different from what I said? He's like starts holding up. What am I hearing? Yeah, I'm there going, I'm confident we'll win 2-0. What the hell?
You were not true to your convictions, but you're like, I think we can take it. I'm saying we're going to take that win. I'm fully confident of that. But the second point is also leaving the big stars on the bench. I don't know how much I can buy into that. For me,
no, but sorry, is that I get that you don't like it. I might not like it. Miles might not like it. But we're getting in Arteta's head now. From what we know of him, what do you think he will do?
We have got trouble in our starting lineup. As you said, you can't have a Trossard and Marino starting again. You can't have that situation. So at the moment, when you've got this many injuries, and we had the same thing last weekend, Leaving stars on the bench just cannot be an option. Play the strongest team you have, because we need to make sure we get the points. And then the old traditional way, once you've got the points in the bag, rotate as much as you like. But bringing people on late because already, oh man, you know what, we're chasing the game, I think that's criminal. So it's not that we can't, it must not happen again. You have to start Eze. You have to start Eze. Whether that's on the left wing or whether that's in the 10th position, make your decision. But you have to find a spot for him. If Odegaard is coming back, I still think you don't start Odegaard because he's just come back from injury. So you got to start Eze. Then that left wing, if Madueke is out, then fine. Martinelli, I would much rather have Martinelli starting on that left than Trossard any day of the week. It is what it is. We are where we are. We have no choice. We've just got to go with that. I'd much rather have Martinelli starting until a time where either Madueke comes back and he can start on the left, or Saka's starting on the right, if that is an option. But my view is you have to start your strongest players, especially with the injuries we've got, and we have to be going there truly thinking we're coming out of here with 3 points and a couple of and a much better goal difference, and we move on to the next game. That's my view.
What was your score prediction, Chooks? Did you say in there?
I'm also gonna go with 2-0. I think it's got 2-0 written all over it. 100% 2-0. Not I think 2-0. 100% 2-0.
2-0. Okay.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. I'm going to predict exactly the same as you.
But like you said in the pub, Raj, it's so much better when you might not get the result right, but if you get the kind of the way they're getting the nature of the game, it's.
Yeah, no. In fairness, I don't think it will. I think Chooks, correct if I'm wrong. I think you're describing a game where we're pretty much dominant start to finish, and 2-0, if anything, is a case of us not putting some other chances away. And yeah. So I don't see the game necessarily going in that way. I think that it's St James's Park at the end of the day. Newcastle have got that annoying thing at St James's Park in big games. We even saw it against Barcelona. Like, they started like a house on fire. Like, they had loads of spells in that game where they were decent, and then Barcelona's kind of quality, ironically from Marcus Rashford, kind of came through. I think they have that ability to just sort of turn it on a little bit in these kind of bigger games and show up. It's part of the kind of history of the ground, I guess. So we're just gonna have to. I think we'll ride out those times. Don't get me wrong. I just think that they're gonna have periods of kind of having the ball and being a bit more dangerous. And but yeah, no, I think we'll win. I think I'll still go with 2-0. What about you, Mice?
Yeah, I think my worry is what you said before, Raj, is that we don't kind of get sucked into this, playing the occasion. Like, I think we've lost there in the league the last 2 seasons. And that worries me a bit, because obviously it's pretty much the same set of players that, going to the same ground where they know that they've struggled a bit. And I think we lost there in the League Cup last season as well, did we? Maybe. So I'm not saying it's a bogey ground or anything like that, but it's just that, hopefully the players have a bit of a stronger mentality to just put that out of their minds. And like you say, just play the fixture. And, you look at it on paper, our 11, whoever he starts, is miles better. Like Chuk said, there's no Isak anymore. Like, that threat has just been removed, and he was, £100+ million player that they don't have anymore. So I'm hopeful that we win. I'm going to go for a 1-0, but there's a massive part of me that's quite worried that, like I say, they're gonna play their usual kind of, they're gonna try and bully us and rile us up kind of tactic. And I think we've got the players to stand up to that. We've got kind of big game, physical players that will stand up to it. But just a little bit worried that it could go that way again. And if it is like a 0-0 going into the latter stages, then could go either way really. But yeah, I think it's gonna be another tight game. But I'll go 1-0, and we come out with the 3 points, which is all we really need, to be honest. I don't really care how we play. Let's just get the 3 points.
I think Declan Rice and Zubimendi, a lot will rely on them. I think they're going to have to just run this game. I think, and they've got the ingredients to do it. But Bruno Guimaraes, etc., they're gonna leave one in every now and again. They're going to be like really physical, So.
Good stuff, boys.
Cool.
Nice one. Great chat. Just want to say as well, we've had a load of comments from Charles and questions from Charles in the chat. We couldn't kind of cover all of them, unfortunately, Charles. So apologies, but thank you as always for watching and interacting. Appreciate it a lot. Cool.
You know, we did, and obviously, like, we should wrap up, but given we didn't analyze it properly, we should all still just take a moment to pay respects to that goal. You know, Martinelli's goal was so good, huh?
What a goal. Yeah, what a goal. And then, in fact, even everything leading up to it, I watched it over and over again. Just, again, the flow of the play, it went from Man City's area all the way to our area. Then I said that tackle from Rice. And in fact, it was actually funny because what I also realized is the only reason Eze was in that position to pick up the ball and make that pass is because he had stayed back to protest about the foul on Declan. Yeah. So if you actually watch it, he's protesting about, Declan on the floor and the fact that he'd been fouled and the fact that the referee hadn't done anything about it. And the play had moved on and he was still back. And then he just went, and then he started jogging forward. By that point, Saka had just moved up, turned around, looking for and he just passed the ball to him. He picked up the ball, took like 2 or 3 steps and just pinged it. But that was the only reason he was that far back, because the game had already moved on. So if it hadn't been for that protestation that he did, he wouldn't have been there. So it's amazing. Really amazing.
And I think the other thing on that goal, like, there's so many things to like about that goal, but I think the thing that was really impressive is that Martinelli run from right to left. Like, he probably doesn't really get the opportunity to do that when he plays, because it's become a bit of a sort of touchline winger for us. But just seeing him have that opportunity to just sort of play on the shoulder of the last defender and make a really intelligent run. And obviously now we've got the players, when they are on the pitch, if they're not starting, players like Eze who can pick them out. That was really, really nice to see, actually. Yeah. Hopefully we get more of that this
and the only other thing I also wanted to add is, because I was wondering why Martinelli obviously made a run from the right side out into the left-hand side to pick up the ball and then lob it. And I thought, and I'd said it's odd because you don't see Martinelli in that position really on that, out on the right-hand side. But then again, I saw analysis that showed that it wasn't Arteta, it was the assistant coach that said to Arteta, let's mix it up.
Yeah. They swapped with Saka, right?
He swapped with Saka, and then that's why he was in that position. And he made that run. I mean, again, there were so many things in that goal that almost like sliding doors. If certain things hadn't happened, that swap and Eze being back protesting, just a fascinating analysis when you see
margins, isn't it? Margins.
It really is margins.
Margins.
Yeah.
So
I see Charles.
Yeah.
Charles, we will talk about the atmosphere of the game next time, mate, because it was electric, especially after the goal.
Do you know what, Charles? You know what you should do as well? On the Arsenal feed, social media account, they've got this slow motion view of Martinelli's goal. Like, I think you've probably seen it doing the rounds where kind of, it's slowing it down like an ultra kind of motion. You can see Mize and I and Aaron and like behind the goal during the, just as you can see our faces as the ball's like lobbing down and seeing it go in and then go crazy. Around the 20-second mark on that clip, you can see me with my red hat on. So you know what? That I'm sorry we didn't get to cover the atmosphere so much today, but that'll give you a little bit of an Arseholics insight by just watching that clip.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
All right.
Managed to sneak that in, Raj. All right, boys. No, as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks everyone who's listened and tuned in. We appreciate it a lot. And we'll catch you hopefully after 3 points at St. James's Park next week.
Let's go.
All right. Take care, boys.
Nice,
see you later.